A sigh of relief for Canada's mining sector following US President Donald Trump's now delayed plan to impose a 25% tariff on all Canadian exports. Tariffs are being paused for 30 days. But the move has raised concerns about supply chain disruptions, rising costs for US industries, and the overall impact on Canadian mining. The mining trade relationship between the two countries remains uncertain. Well, joining us from the mining Indaba in Cape Town, South Africa, to discuss the implications is Pierre Gratton, President and CEO of the Mining Association of Canada. Pierre, thanks very much indeed, as I said, for making the time during this very important global industry gathering.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Let's start with the mining Indaba where you are. I mean, to what extent has the drama around US tariffs hijacked some of the conversations either in the hallways or on official panels? Has that happened?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's what everybody's talking about, what's going on with President Trump's administration. Absolutely. Certainly everywhere I go, and certainly if you see any Canadians or Americans, it's what we're talking about. But, Europeans too, because they're next. And the South Africans, because Trump has also taken action against South Africa. So, yeah, it's very much a topic of conversation.
And then, Pierre, how significant is the 30-day delay? I mean, you started the mining Indaba in the morning, you heard about the tariffs. Come the afternoon, we've got a delay on it. How significant is that 30-day delay of US tariffs for Canada's mining sector? And does it give the industry any breathing room to address trade concerns?
Well, obviously it's welcome. I think it's welcome for all sectors, not just mining. And actually, one thing I should emphasize that in some ways the mining sector was in a slightly better place than some other Canadian industries for a number of reasons. We do export a lot of product to the United States, primarily inputs into steel, for example, and aluminum. But we also export a lot of copper, for example, to Asia. We have gold. It doesn't really matter. You can sell gold pretty well anywhere in the world. So not all parts of the sector were going to be impacted equally. Plus, there were the tariffs on critical minerals. The U.S. critical minerals list were set at 10%, including uranium, but also other critical minerals. So we were kind of along with oil and gas in a different category. At least parts of the industry were. So that's the first sort of important point. But certainly when I was talking to my members, they were already starting to do a number of things. They were obviously starting to look at how to redirect their products, go to other markets. These are internationally traded commodities. The price doesn't change when you sell it to the United States or you sell it to Europe. And also they were starting to look at the cost of inputs and whether they'd be able to source the things required to operate mines from other countries. Because, of course, a big concern was the rising costs of imports from the United States because of the Canadian response to the tariffs. What this does effectively is I think it gives the industry, our industry and other industries, that more time to figure that out, because they were all scrambling to figure that out in a few days' time. Now we've got 30 days, and I think now we're probably all hopeful this won't in fact come to pass.
You mentioned alternatives to the US market if in 30 days' time we see a reality that we don't like. I mean, what are some of the alternatives here for Canadian critical minerals?
Well, the Europeans keep saying they'd love to have more critical minerals from Canada. So Europe's a market. A lot of our materials already go to, a lot of our copper from British Columbia already goes to Asia. So there are many other, nickel from Voisey's Bay, I believe, as I understand it, goes to Europe. There are, I think, some of our iron ore goes to Europe. So it's looking, and gold, you can, like I said, you could sell anywhere. So there are, and you could fly it out. It doesn't have to cross a border on a truck. It's much easier to respond to. And actually, when you think of the gold sector, The instability that Trump is causing international markets boosts the price of gold. So, and we've also seen the dollar pay a price from this. I mean, it's recovering now a bit because of the pause, but we were seeing the dollar fall. And when the dollar falls, that's actually on balance beneficial to Canadian mines because we sell our products in US dollars. We pay our employees and we pay our energy, our two highest costs, in Canadian dollars. So again, how this affects the industry, all the companies were trying to sort of figure this out. How is this going to, play out? What is the actual impact going to be, and how do we minimize it?
Pierre, America no doubt needs critical minerals. And I mean, you made the point in your press release or reaction that these tariffs are counterproductive to American national security and economic interests. Why is that?
Completely. Well, 60% of their nickel comes from Canada. And that nickel is needed for defense industries, among others, automotive, of course, as well. They, China has banned the export of germanium. Canada can supply the U.S. with germanium. We produce a wide range of critical minerals that the United States needs. We can supply a lot more. That's why President Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau many years ago set up this task force on critical minerals so that we could deepen that relationship. So yeah, it does go contrary to everything that we have been doing.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, excuse me for coming in, that it was under President Trump that you had this joint action plan on critical minerals. And presumably that's what you're talking about. I mean, how would you assess its progress? And do you think those tariffs undermine that very relationship that was established there?
Yeah, well, it does effectively undermine that relationship. Um, it began under Trump. It actually had a lot of momentum under Trump. It continued under Biden. Why is that? Because this whole issue for years, both south of the border and in Canada, has enjoyed bipartisan support. We recognize that both of our economies are increasingly dependent on, or had become increasingly dependent on China for the supply of a number of critical minerals. We needed to lessen that. We were too exposed. We were best doing it together. And that is what we were focused on achieving. And we'd made great progress, still lots to do. So this kind of upends it.
I would imagine it was a tumultuous couple of days last week. I mean, it's not just about the tariff, but mines do big planning. This is an industry that spans over decades, if anything, in a project. I mean, the last few days just ahead of that tariff announcement may have seen deals being made, may have seen people posture themselves differently. So indeed, damage would have been done in some shape or form. I'm wondering if you can just remark on that and perhaps just tell me, what do mines and the fraternity do in the next 30 days?
They prepare they prepare for the worst case scenario, really. You have to manage your risks. You have to start looking, as I said, earlier, are there alternative sources of supply? Can we get goods? Can we get inputs that will be tariff free from other jurisdictions? Can we, where can we get our tires? Where can we get our vehicles? If they're, is it Komatsu instead of Caterpillar, to take an example? If Caterpillar is faced with tariffs by the Canadian government, you have to and you have to start looking at who you sell your products to, where you might diversify. In some ways, this could be the shock that many Canadian industries needed. We've all known for years that we are too dependent on the United States. It's the easiest market. They're just to the south. We have a massive border, but we've always known we need to diversify. The forestry sector is actually, because they've had a couple of decades of softwood lumber disputes with the United States, have actually done more to diversify their markets than probably many other sectors. Maybe this is the shock that we all need to actually do that with greater seriousness and greater resolve.
But Pierre, I'm assuming that ultimately you would want things to return to normal when it comes to that trade relationship with the US.
Of course, what would be a wonderful scenario as well is that we return to normality. And we realize that the United States and Canada are much better off as the allies that we have always been.
I'm going to leave it there indeed. Well, thanks very much indeed, President and CEO of the Mining Association of Canada, Pierre Gratton, talking to us there from the mining Indaba in South Africa. Thanks indeed for your time.
Thank you very much.